You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
Sticker shock in the Seattle area. Bellevue, where I'm from, Bellevue home sells for nearly $1 million over listing price. Now, we've just had the whole interest rate debacle start, right? All right, Fed's going to raise rates 100 times in the next 2 minutes, so it's probably going to impact the economy. You better run out and buy your home now. It's not that bad, but it's rocking the markets and people are like, oh, interest rates going up, right? Well, the federal Fed has committed to raise, doing their part to break the back of inflation. If you know that term, you might be as old as me. But with that comes buyers freaking out. Buyers are already freaked out. This is the most, and I've said this 100 times, this is the most imbalanced real estate market ever. I don't think it's ever going to be this imbalanced. We're basically sold out all the time. Right before I came on this to record this podcast, I did a quick look through the MLS. And when I point over here, I've got my big screen with all my business stuff up there. This is my podcasting computer and my video editing computer that I'm pointing at here. I took a quick peek to look and see how much available inventory there was in the Bellevue area that we're talking about here, where it goes over a million list. And it's a big area. I mean, you got a few 100,000 people living in this area, and you've got thousands of jobs headed this way. Amazon is committed to bringing a bunch of their contingent from Seattle to Bellevue. Microsoft's already got a big presence here. Google's got a huge presence. One Microsoft Way is just up the road, literally like I'm closer to Redmond than I am Bellevue right now. And that campus is being completely rebuilt. So we're having a huge influx of people. And this area that I looked at, where we've got this $1 million over list price home going on, it had a total of 27 homes on the market. And this is a big geographic area. 27 homes, 27. And they were almost all over $1 million. Some of them 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 million. Just, you can dream, but really, do you really want a $20 million home? You might want one, but if you actually got down to the mechanics of what it would take to, maintain that, property taxes and all that, I'll probably do a $5 million home instead. That's what you would do. But, $1 million, there were hardly any. So you've got this supply that is non-existent, and you've got things going on like a house going $1 million over list price. Is it worth $1 million more? Hell no, would be my guess. Now, I can't say that because I haven't looked at the data. As a certified appraiser, I have to have within my work file all of the data to give you a price on a home, because when I give you a price on a home, I've done an appraisal. Now, I could do my other thing and say, hey, I'm giving you this as a real estate broker, and I think it's in this and that range. Real estate brokers have way more leniency on what they can and can't say pricing wise. But my guess is that $1 million over list price. So unless somebody really, really didn't do their homework, and I know the broker that listed this property, and he's a very, very good broker, and he knows his stuff. When I have Dan Chapman on this podcast, one of his premier brokers is the guy who listed this property. So I know he didn't undershoot it. There's just that much demand for housing right now. $1 million. That's nutty. And the little byline was, and it wasn't cheap to begin with. It's not like we went from $100,000 to 1.1 million. You know what I mean? So, all right, let's jump on in. Before we do, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies here in Bellevue, Washington, just outside of Seattle. And I read the news from that perspective. All right, let's go. Sometimes I actually read about real estate. This is one of those days. It's your lucky day, right? I don't know. I think people just want to hear me talk about Antifa and other stuff, but that's okay too. I don't mind talking about that, but every now and then, all right, everybody's got to live somewhere. Let's do a little real estate. We've heard that 2022 is going to be equally or more crazy than 2021 was when it comes to real estate in the Seattle metro area. And here's proof. This home at 13419 Northeast 37th Place in Bellevue, Washington, sold for nearly $1 million over the asking price. It went pending on the market just 5 days after its debut. You might say, well, why did it take them 5 days to sell if they went for $1 million over? Well, what you typically do, and I didn't look at the listing on this one. I could have. I just didn't care enough because I can tell you basically what happened here. Put it on the market. They did an offer review period 5 days later. You get all your offers in by 6 p.m. on January 27th, whatever it might have been. You get all these offers. You got to sit down with your sellers. And it's a lot of work trying to figure out what the best offer is. Sometimes you've got one that is just so much more money over the top and beyond everybody else that it's like, okay, we're just going to take that one. Maybe you've got terms that make it, okay, this is all cash. So we're going to go with this cash one. Even though this offer over here is a little bit higher than our cash offer, this cash offer can close in 10 days. Boom, done. Don't have to worry about them, having to get financing or any of that. Or maybe you've got this one incredible offer, but they want to do a building inspection, and you might know that there's a little something wrong with your house and you don't want people to do a building inspection on it. They can catch it later and you'll deal with a potential lawsuit then. Maybe you're one of those kind of sellers and you're like, yeah, I'm going to take this offer over here without the building inspection. So a lot of different ways to cut it. Or maybe somebody has got, on a house like this. All right, we're going to cut you a check for $250,000, non-refundable earnest money. Goes straight to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, Mr. and Mr. Seller, Mrs. and Mrs. Seller. You get the idea, whichever one it is. We're going to cut you a check for $250,000, non-refundable. We want your house. And you might say, okay, because if this deal flips, keep your $250,000. We all say, carry on. Or party on, Garth, something along those lines. It's just nutty. So you got $1 million over list price in 5 days, not unusual. So this area, based on this address, I actually lived fairly close to this a couple of years when I was younger. My dad had a 4-lot development in this area. It's called Bridle Trails, a lot of equestrian horse properties. Got a horse in Bellevue. That's the deal, right? Horse in Bellevue. That's the thing. You have 1 or 2 horses. A lot of the properties are on an acre, acre and a half, 3/4 of an acre, or a horse acre, which is enough property to have 1 horse on your property. Therefore, horse acre, right? So there's no doubt that the property is a beauty. Actually, it's a daylight basement home, the one we're talking about here. It's 3,300 square feet and sits on a full acre in the highly sought after Bridle Trails neighborhood. Okay. Bridle Trails is sought after, but it's certainly not the most of the Bellevue neighborhoods. Go a little further west, you get into Bill Gates territory. Let's be honest. You get into Hunts Point territory. That's where the real men live, right? So that's where presidential candidates, they go to Hunts Point to rustle up some pocket change for their campaign, right? So landscaping is composed of soft, flat lawns. And all right, I'm not going to read any more of that because I don't care about marketing. So it was listed for $2.6 million. That's not cheap, but it's certainly not overpriced for the area. That's pretty average. Current median price in Bellevue is $1.6 million, up almost 30% year over year. And I think this year Bellevue goes much higher than that because we've just got no supply. And there are consistently huge tech companies, the biggest in the world, bringing employees here, and upper end tech employees. They don't want to spend any time commuting to the office, even though half of them are, doing virtual stuff anyway. So, this one going $1 million over, but listing agent Max Wambach, managing broker for Yada Yada. They were surprised by the offer from the buyer, which was almost $1 million over asking. At the time this article was written, it's pending, so we don't really know what it's going to close for, but we know it's somewhere $1 million over list. We're experiencing an unprecedented influx of buyers while inventory supply has been depleted to record lows. And now you've got the threat of interest rates going up, right? Okay, so I don't think there's anything else of real interest there. The house is updated. Yeah, but it's kind of funky. There's probably, I don't know how many offers there were on this one, but we are seeing, I think we put under contract this last weekend 4 or 5 properties, and there was multiple offers on each one. Either my brokers that were working with buyers, I call it being the winner/loser because you won the race, but you might have paid the highest of any property in that area like ever in order to win that race of getting your offer accepted. So So paying 20 to 40% over list price, not uncommon, but $1 million over 1.6, that's crazy talk. But then again, we've got a big drop in home sales, surging mortgage rates, tight supply. These are the new dynamics. So this is a Wall Street article. And so everybody's kind of aware that the Fed is going to do their thing to try and stop inflation from going at the rate it's going. I don't think that'll have much of an impact because so much of this is based on the supply chain and huge consumer demand and a little bump in interest rates, federal funds rates. That's going to slow things down a little bit, and it's going to impact people on the very lower ends of the economic, where they sit within the economy. If you're making minimum wage, you got 7% less to work with, income now than you do a year ago. That's your bottom line. So, and does inflation go a little bit harder here in the next few months? Yeah, I think it does. And so what does that do for the mortgage market? What's that do for the housing market? Well, interest rates have bumped up and people are freaking out that if I wait 6 months to get a house, it's going to be worth 15% more. And it damn well could be. I mean, those are just crazy, crazy numbers. It makes no sense, but it does. Because you've got no supply. Like I said, you got 27 properties serving an area where thousands of people, and that's just today. Tomorrow you could have 10. Half of that stuff is probably junk. It's probably got issues with it. The other half is under contract and we don't know it. It's in that 5-day period of, I should have looked at how many of those were brand new listings, but a bunch of them were, and they're probably have already got offers. So that's what keeps happening. Is there anything that's going to bring a bunch of inventory onto the market? No, it's not. I just read an article about builders. Well, builders permits were up across the United States. That's awesome. That's great because we need the housing. But to try and, bring that into the narrative that we're going to have a lot of supply, no, we're not. And the sellers, I've got a house that has gone up like this in price. It's not a great house. It's okay. It's getting better because I've been working on it a lot. This weekend, I spent both days sealing up the slab foundation because I get a little bit of moisture through it. And so I scraped it down and brushed it with a wire brush and got all the crap off of it. And then I did a dry mop and I got all the stuff off of it. And now I'm putting a sealant on it and just sealing it up. And yeah, it's going to be better. But it's an old house, 1962. And basement homes in the Pacific Northwest, they tend to get a little soggy during the deep winter months, and water goes to the easiest point of resistance, least point of resistance, and it gets in your damn house. And so, I'm working on that. And yet I've got this house and it's probably up 30% since last year. So the numbers are real, but where would I go? Where would I go? I don't know. Somewhere else, apparently. And I want to keep living here for a while. I need to keep doing this, got the businesses. And so I'm going to be here for a little bit. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm not selling my house, even though, wow, I could make a lot of money if I sold this bad boy. So the growth in U.S. home prices slowed down slightly in November across the nation. And a measure of home prices in 20 U.S. cities jumped 18.3%. So you've got the number of homes selling is dropping. The price appreciation is slowing down. And a lot of this has to do with the volume of sales. The number of sales slowing down is strictly a function of not enough inventory out there. So prices are slowing down, but not here in Seattle because we've got in Seattle proper. Yes, because there's a lot of restrictions and crazy stuff going on and crime going on here in Bellevue. Yeah, we don't tolerate that kind of stuff. So you've got a market where people are like, I want to live there. I don't want to live in Seattle. And I want to commute into downtown Bellevue. And so the commute for this home that we're talking about that went $1 million over into downtown Bellevue, that would be 7 minutes, something like that. Quick. 10 minutes if you hit a couple of red lights, tops. You're that close. Into downtown Seattle, maybe 15 minutes if you jumped right on the bridge and there wasn't much traffic, something like that. Maybe 20 minutes if you're going into, the heart of downtown Seattle, something like that. So pretty close, really close, geographically. And so when you've got an economy like we do here that has so many jobs coming in and so few places for their employees to really put the roots down if they know they're going to be here for a while, you've got tech bros, for lack of a better word, bidding things up by $1 million. That's just what's going on. So yeah, some phenomenal numbers. Here's another article. The U.S. facing the most competitive January property market in history. And I've been talking about this for a while, and I think things are going to heat up even further in our first couple of quarters here of 2022. The main thing that's going to impact things that could be something that slows us down is just if we have maybe the Fed is committed to maybe 4, maybe 7 interest rate hikes this year. If they did like a 50 basis point hike on their first meeting, it would kind of shock everything. It's expected to probably be 25 basis points, so a quarter point pop in rates, federal funds rates. If something drastically different happened, short term, that could rock things a little bit. But guess what? These tech bros, and I use that as a term because I don't really know who's putting this particular house under contract, but these tech bros, they don't care about a quarter point interest rate. They don't care about a 1 point interest rate bump. It's not relevant to them. It's really not. Like, okay, so here, just give me a mortgage. I'm going to put $1 million down. I'm going to sell off a few stock options, whatever. I want the house. That's why they're able to go $1 million over listing, where everybody else is like, that doesn't really fit my budget. And so the average consumer who needs a house that isn't a tech bro, and I make fun of tech bros because they're an easy target, right? They're guys, they can take it, whatever. Nobody's going to get worked up and tell me that I'm being racist or sexist or something based on tech bros. But the average consumer is looking at their budget and going, okay, it's 15, maybe 30% more later this year, and interest rates will have bumped up at least 0.5%. So now we can afford roughly $100,000 less. So if you're under $1 million, now you've gone from 800 down to 700 in affordability, and your pricing has gone from 600 to 700. I'm making those numbers up because I don't know what the appreciation is going to be. So the average consumer is caught in the squeeze. You see how that squeeze play works. Rising prices and then dropping affordability because the rise in interest rates mean you can purchase less with your income levels and your down payment. So I think a lot of people are jumping in to these purchases that are like, hey, we've been waiting the last year. We've been waiting the last 2 years. It's time to get aggressive and it's time to buy something. So $1 million over on a decent home in Bellevue. That house is not great. I mean, I'm just telling you now, I looked at the photos and I'm like, oh, that's a daylight rambler. Which is 1 story with basement underneath. Guess what that basement was built for? Because it's on a sloping site. Guess what happens to the backside of that basement? You got it. It probably leaks. I don't know. But that's what happens in the Pacific Northwest when you get 85, straight days of rain. It's not a lot of rain, but that ground sure gets saturated. And after a while, water goes wherever it wants. I will attest to that as my home has flooded numerous times. Total pain in the ass. But I've got a lot of big blowers and heaters, and I can dry things out. And yeah, we're working on it. We'll have it squared away. But my bottom line is $1 million over on a home that could flood. I don't know. But it's not like we're talking about a new construction home that sits perched up on its own little pedestal. You've got problems, even though you paid over $1 million potentially. That's just the way the housing market goes. So folks who aren't able to afford $1.6 million up to 2.6, what are they going to get? Well, they're going to get something 1.2, 1.3, and they're going to have to spend a couple $100,000 fixing it up. That's entry-level housing here in the Bellevue area now. The Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, just crazy numbers. But if you're coming from a San Francisco market, you know what you say? Well, with our equity, geez, Seattle's cheap. Let's take 2. That's literally what we're seeing. I'm like, man, I can't believe it's so affordable here. So nice here. The homelessness is not nearly as bad as San Francisco. It's not great, but we can live with it. Man, with the affordability of housing. So it's all relative, right? It's all relative. You come from New York and you see the housing we have here in Seattle. You're thinking, wow, 10 minutes into downtown and I get a nice big house and I'm on an acre and I could have a horse if I wanted to. I could be a cowboy in Bellevue. People are literally saying that, okay, maybe that's why you go $1 million over. Maybe somebody's daughter is dying to have a horse, as some kids do. I have a niece who is really into horses. I'm not a huge horse guy, just not. Horsepower, that's a different thing, right? I mean, who doesn't want more horsepower in their life, but not a horse that eats. So you've got this crazy scenario where, people are freaking out over those interest rate changes and they're feeling the squeeze. And then you've got articles like this. Wall Street predicts as many as 7 rate hikes this year. Here's what that means for the markets. 7 rate hikes. All right. 1 for each one of the next Fed's meetings. Okay. All right. I could see that happening because I think inflation numbers are going to come out, for the last couple of months. And as we just kind of work our way through the beginning of 2022, I think we're going to have some huge inflation, bigger than we just, the 7% or 6% or whatever it is now. So, you get all these rate hikes and that will translate into, interest rate prices on the mortgage rates, going up to 4%, which my uncle and I were talking the other day and we were laughing. Oh, they're going to hit 4%. We were laughing because we're talking about his mortgage on the house that he and my dad had, side-by-side houses here in West Bellevue. His mortgage interest rate was 21%. We were talking about that over this last weekend. And so we're laughing about 3.5% going to 4%. So again, it's all relative. People are freaking out. Oh, I can't get the historically low interest rates. No, but if you're even if you're at 5%, that's a really good interest rate. We just got spoiled with all this time at rates around 3.25% or even less, or 3.5% interest rate. I think right now I'm recording this on January 31st, and I believe rates, I didn't check today, are they 3.67, something like that, somewhere in that range, 3.7 maybe, 3.5 to 3.7, somewhere in there. Above probably 3.5, less than 4, somewhere in that range. That's a crazy great rate. But if there's not much for you to look at and you come across something that makes sense, you might be tempted to just bid that bad boy up and, put in your escalation clause. Every single offer that I'm seeing from my Summit brokers has got an escalation clause. And I just cringe because when you get into that territory, emotions takes over. And house price just almost becomes irrelevant. It becomes the kid, wanting something, and it doesn't matter what it takes. The kid wants what he wants for Christmas or, not Thanksgiving. No kids want presents on Thanksgiving, but for their birthday. That's what I meant to say. They want what they want. Homeowners want what they want. And if they have the money, they have the firepower to do it. So then you get a bunch of people with a whole bunch of money buying homes. That's what's going on. That's the bottom line. So is that going to change anytime in the near future? Here is my opinion. No, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse because supply is going to be about the same. Nothing is really coming to the market that's going to really increase that supply. Sellers are going, well, where would I go? So they're not going to bring homes on the market. Interest rates will have gone up. Prices will have gone up. If you're a seller, you're in the driver's seat. If you're not, you're going to have to hustle to kind of make that go. And that's what people are doing. They're competing against $1 million over list price. So that's not an everyday occurrence, and obviously not because this hit the media, $1 million over list. What was interesting is that thing went from 2.6 to did it go from 1.6? Yeah, it was 2.6 and went to 3.5 and change, something like that. That's crazy. But, why wouldn't it happen? Whew, wild. Yep. Welcome to the real estate market in 2022. Unbalanced. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I think we go to more imbalanced And that'll be, much of the same. Much of what you heard last year is going to repeat this year. But I think at the beginning of the year, it's going to be even more heated up. And I think you'll hear more of this stuff. So I kind of wanted to do this podcast and say, hey, here's a real example of what's going on. $1 million over list in an already pretty expensive home, which was 2.6. So this stuff is going on. So if you're out there buying a home, make sure you work with a professional that knows, if you are desperate to get a home, that knows how to operate in that environment. Because there are so many different ways for your offer to get not accepted, to have somebody else beat you out. But you need to work with a real estate professional that knows how to get your offer accepted in today's market. And then also be able to tell you, this is way beyond your budget. You can't afford this. When you get to the finish line, you may not be able to close on this. You're going to lose your earnest money. Have somebody that will be able to give you that feedback as well, because that's what it takes in today's market. Okay. Thanks so much. That is it for me on this one. I will catch up with you very soon. Until then, goodbye. We'll talk again. Bye for now.